Yeah.
Same people, same conversations, and we're going to get going with this first topic. And let's start with mommies. So calling all of my stay-at-home mommies, or if you are watching right now and you know of a stay-at-home mommy, there's a new study that proves what they've been trying to probably say for so long. Because we're stay-at-home mommies doesn't mean we do not have a job. It's maybe the most important job, so much that it's worth 2.5 full-time jobs, according to this new study. Go ahead.
Or stay-at-home dads.
Yes.
Or stay-at-home dads.
Yes.
There is a lot of
Drop that there.
There are a lot of
Slow
stay-at-home
clap
dads. But does this new study just focus on mommies?
It does.
Okay.
But
there
that's
are
not to
stay-at-home
say
dads.
it's equal. The jobs out there are stressful for mommies and daddies all over the world.
Yes.
And I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you are a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad and you worked in corporate America before, what is the difference between the two? I'm curious.
Staying at home with kids versus
corporate America.
Oh,
do you feel like you are overworked in the home more than you were in corporate America? Was it more difficult to balance your work life with raising a baby than it is to fully dedicate yourself?
Or do you get stir crazy?
Do we have
Do
a
you
lot
have
to say?
stir crazy at home?
But what I would love to hear is I would love to hear how they came about this number 2.5 times. How did they come up with this?
Here's my reasoning. I think it's because not only are you not working 8 hours a day, you're also working another 8 hours.
Right.
When, it's not just work hours. It's not just the 8, 9 hours a day. You're working in the afternoon. You're also working at night. And then for the other 5% of the day, you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, literally, you're working all day. Taking care of the kids, taking care of the family, taking care of the husband or wife.
There we go.
Right.
It's a lot.
I would say the thing, however they came to it, it is
Well, let's look here.
Staying at home, taking care of kids is vastly underappreciated. It is exhausting. It takes a lot of time. It is absolutely worth it, but it takes a lot out of you.
Anthony Franklin says, single dad here with no help too. Thank you.
Yep, exactly.
Good for you guys. Yeah, we're just talking about this one study that surveyed 2,000 American moms of children aged 5 to 12, and this was in a weekly schedule. So this was according to the week. So the study conducted, it was by the juice company Welch's. So there you go. Revealed that the average daily start time for a mom is 6:23 a.m. Would you say that's true or false for your family?
It's different for every family.
Oh.
But
if you have a child that
I'll
sleeps
put it this way. The kids get up earlier than they need to.
Earlier than they need to, always, probably. And it
Or
says by the
later than they need.
yeah. Or by the time she ends her work, it's about 8:31 p.m. So 6:23 a.m. to 8:31 p.m.
So like 14 hours.
So like 14 hours. So it says not many jobs require a 14-hour working day. Most moms have to do this every day of the week. No vacation unless you're on vacation and you leave kids with grandma and grandpa, someone. But that's how they conducted this study. So this is a New York Post article, and we're going into this. So it says, in total, that makes a mother's working week a whopping 98 hours of work, or 2.5 times more than the average job. So that's how they came to this conclusion.
Pretty straightforward way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that leaps out to me is, with kids ages 5 to 12, well, then we're thinking, hey, they're in school for most of the day.
Right.
But when
And
kids are away,
school.
but when kids are away, then
housework.
Yeah, then you can't really, if you take the day off when the kids are away or busy or occupied, then you're behind, because there's always laundry, there's always dishes, there's always things.
There's always cooking. There's all
It's very
picking up
stressful.
The kids. Parenthood is fun. I'm just gonna let you guys know. You should totally do
Oh,
it.
thrilling. It sounds like such a shining recommendation.
An ongoing, like, daily, my thing is, like, once you have a child, like, your life is never the same, right? Like, you're constantly thinking about the well-being of your child. What is when they're at school?
Right.
Is there safety? What are they doing in that moment? I can just imagine, like, I
Lucinda
wonder what
says,
they're doing right now. Are they okay? Are they being bullied? And your mind probably always goes to something negative. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. Well, I would say this. 80% of the time you're like, it's going to be fine. 20% you're like, I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine. Because kids get into stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot be there 24 hours a day on top of them.
Bubble wrapping your children, making them walk around like.
Yeah, you can't. It's not good. It's not good for you, and it's not good for the kid.
Yeah.
However, you really need to pay attention. Certain ages, when they're starting to walk and things, they get into stuff, they fall down. You're trying to avoid a catastrophic mistake.
Right.
So you get an idea of when those moments are. Anytime you're on water, stairs, things like that. Sharp objects. I mean, just stuff.
Lucinda says it is mentally exhausting for her. She says she's been a stay-at-home mom for 14 years, and she's ready to go back to work.
Yeah.
See,
because I figure at the end of that day, most times you can like, okay, work done, gonna go to dinner, gonna hang out with friends, or maybe some people are gonna continue to work, of course, but at least there's not that parental attachment. You can detach yourself. So I can see how that can be less stressful in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And you know where I see a big disconnect, I think where this is really important, so all the women watching, all the men watching, if your wife or spouse is a stay-at-home person, understand that when you've been gone all day at work, that's stressful. You've got issues, and when you come home, you're tired and all that. Whatever you went through at work, I promise you, is nothing compared to being at home all day with a kid or two kids, because it is so. It's great. You're raising kids. We signed up for this, but
not paying for daycare.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just exhausting. So, you know, there's a lot of issues when people come home. You know, where have you been? So the parent comes home from work, the other one, and they're both tired. Yeah, exactly. Like, what's going on? This place is a mess. You've been home all day. What have you been doing all day?
You both want to relax.
When you have that conversation, it goes downhill in a hurry. So just understand, if you've never been all day with kids, multiple days in a row, it's exhausting. So just know that that's what you're walking into when you come home from work. So any issues, if you are noticing things that are not perfect, you don't need to mention it, because you don't know what they went through all day.
Can I say this? The survey revealed that the average mom gets just 1 hour and 7 minutes of time to herself every day.
Not even that much.
A little more than a lunch hour, it says, because it's interrupted, right? You can't just like, okay, clocking out, going on lunch, let the kids do their own thing there.
How do you get your you time?
Okay, you're a working mom.
I will say, being on the schedule, so coming in at 3 o'clock, leaving at 11:30, that helps somewhat. But as soon as I get home, I'm in mommy mode. Now it's lunchtime, and now it's nap time. And even nap times are, I wish they were longer, but they're definitely a lot shorter. And then by the afternoon, evening, she has to take her bath. She has to go outside. She has to do all these different things because she needs to be a toddler. And then by the time it's bedtime, I'm like, I'm exhausted, and I'm trying to read her book, and I'm just so tired. But I feel like you have this guilt of maybe I'm not being a good parent, but then I'm like, well, I'm also working, so I'm trying to find that balance right now, and I'm sure it's going to be even harder when I have this one come out. Like, you know, your wife Courtney, she has to go through all this, and I'm sure you guys had the hard decision of, are you going to still work, or are you still not going to work? So right now, my husband and I are kind of evaluating what's going to happen, but as of right now, I like working, and I will say, going to work is a break from your child, and I think that's something that people need to do, but at the same time, you also feel bad for working, and then
or for almost enjoying that break, or being like, okay, admitting that it is a break. But when you say break, that's like a relief moment. You know, but I don't think coming from someone who isn't a mom, I don't look at that and say, gosh, like what a terrible mom. A, because I don't have kids and I will never judge someone who I'm not in those shoes. But B, because I get that, you know, as someone who is to be in this industry, you know, you have to be passionate about what you do. So the idea of saying I'm going to give up my passion to raise these human beings that I'm very passionate about, that's probably a very intense conversation to have. Was my mom a stay-at-home mom? My mom and dad have always worked. So dad was in the military, so growing up, mom had a job where it was just something that, you know, was very fluid. It wasn't necessarily what she calls, like, wasn't a career. But in my eyes, I'm like, you did what you needed to do to hold the house down. And mom and dad would, like, clap hands on the, passing each other 2 ships, what are they, passing in the night. So it was like dad would come home, and then mom would go, and she was, you know, a server at various restaurants when we were at different stations, at different bases growing up. So I always knew parents who worked, but I never felt deprived of time for like mom or dad. I always knew that as like
I will say this: growing up, both of my parents worked for the majority of my adolescence, but my mom, there was a point that my mom got hurt and she had to stay home, and I will say having that presence in the home consistently was something that I loved. And when it was time for her to go back to work,
you're sad.
I was like, don't do it.
And as being an only child, that was, you know, probably too, like, a sense of companionship too.
Yes, and I don't know, maybe other kids like being home alone after school, being free to do whatever you wanted to do. I was like, I craved that parental presence.
Or just interaction.
Yeah.
I didn't have a dog then either. Maybe that would have helped.
So I want to go back to what Welch's told Yahoo. It said the result of the survey highlight just how demanding the role of mom can be and the nonstop barrage of tasks it consists of. Just constantly piling up.
Yeah.
It's also, you make the tasks yourself, though. You're like, you don't need to do the laundry today. You can also take a break, do the laundry tomorrow. I think as a parent, you feel like you have to do X, Y, and Z, or else you didn't accomplish something today.
Right.
When some days, if you're just hanging out with your kid, that is enough. That is perfect. That should be the 100% that you need every single day. Don't you agree with that? I mean,
yeah, the quickest way to improve your life is to lower your expectations. Okay.
Right.
And that's the
solid
truth.
advice.
Like
right.
your life is just different. So
Yeah.
it's okay. It's good. It's better in so many ways. Yes, you don't have that much me time, but do you really need to watch 6 episodes of Breaking Bad
Yeah.
back to back to back?
You do.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Uninterrupted,
So
right?
again, I've
Marathoning is
fully
life.
transformed. I've lowered my expectations. Yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but-
do you even need
but
Netflix? You're at
yeah.
that point now, right?
But the thing is that it's hard and all that, but it's so worth it. I mean, I'm telling you, I was with my friends up in Tahoe over the weekend, and I grew up with this guy since 2nd grade. So we've done the whole thing: school, college, after college, the whole thing. So and then kids, and he's got a 3rd one on the way. And so you just end up talking about how the struggle and all this stuff and blah 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 blah. You just whinge about everything.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he's got an 8-year-old. Hey, Dad, can I go up? Sure. His 8-year-old kid is going skiing by himself. He's got
Yes.
another one. Hey, can I go with my friend he's 5? Yeah, sure, no problem. And then we're hanging out. And then I'm like, my daughter's ready to go. She's 4. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go for a couple hours. He's like, cool. He's like, I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah.
And so you
It's only like
figure it
that
out.
for little
You
pockets of
figure it
time.
out. It's all consuming. It's exhausting. But you know what? It's also worth it.
I want to address this before Jessica Downey has to head off. She is an avid watcher, and she said she's so mad that she's missing this one because it's probably one of the most relevant conversations to her life. However, as my job as a stay-at-home mom / taxi driver, I have to go get my kids to school, but I'll come back later and watch this. She says, but I will say this, though, that it is kind of a virus. It's not just motherhood. Anyone who is a stay-at-home parent understands this. She meant bias, not my virus.
Not virus. I'm like,
Okay,
ooh, what?
so I'll repeat that with the right word. I will say this, though, that it is a kind of bias, not just motherhood. Anyone who is a stay-at-home parent feels like they should be with their kid and not just somewhere else distracted.
I feel like, though, like, for me, I feel like I wouldn't be contributing financially if I decided not to work.
Okay.
I feel like, okay, hubby, let's live in this home in East Sacramento, and you're going to work all these long hours. And I would hate to have that pressure or burden on him where he would have to be the sole provider. Like, are there points in time where you feel like, okay, I mean, if Courtney couldn't be a photographer anymore, would you feel like you would have this burden of, I'm the sole moneymaker, this is going to be a little stressful, more so than normal?
Yes. There is, I mean, for whoever is the sole, bringing in the most, there's a pressure that, one day, because this is the current job market, one day it's over. And you don't know when that's going to happen. And then now oh my gosh, thinking about those moments where all of a sudden it can shut off and you have to change everything whilst providing for your family and the mortgage and all these other things. It's mentally exhausting, even though it may not even happen, but you imagine all these things happening.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's always helpful to help out financially and all that. But again, here's the secret income with all this is that whoever, if it's the mom or the dad that stays home with the kids, if you're doing that full time, you're not paying for daycare, which is, again, as we go back, my whole thing I always talk about is how much more difficult it is for this generation than in prior generation. I'm telling you right now, inflation adjusted, nobody back in the day was paying $1,700 a month for 2 kids in daycare.
What?
It just didn't happen.
Is that the amount?
For some of these places, if
Good
it's
luck
all
to you.
day, if it's all day with 2 kids, it can be well over $1,000. It can be as much as a mortgage. I'll put it that way.
Jessica Downey chimed in again saying that her family actually saves money by her staying home.
Yes.
She would love to go back to work, but it just financially doesn't work out for her family.
Daycare is, it's one of these things that quietly, secretly has become a major financial burden for so many families that sometimes the choice is made. Sometimes both parents want to work, but financially it just makes sense that someone's going to stay home and watch the kids because it's so expensive. If you want to send a kid away for 8 hours, it is so expensive.
Wow.
I think another thing is
Be
that...
careful. Megan's like, thank you for ruining my life.
No, I'm just absorbing it all.
But can you imagine, though, saying, I'm going to stay at home, okay? So I'm going to completely leave my job where I can have a moment to be creative and not so much be alone for my child, but this is my time to let my mind work as an adult.
Yes.
Because as soon as you go back
that you
home,
could be the best
you're
parent.
literally going to be talking about nursery rhymes. I can name every single nursery rhyme you guys want. Like I feel like I guess I'm teaching her, but I feel like I am not living up to my full mental capacity.
Stimulated.
Yeah, exactly. So at least if I'm at work, I'm typing, I'm writing, I'm putting graphics together for the weather, or even joining this conversation. I feel like I'm actually having an adult conversation versus I'm at home watching TV, playing, reading books, and I know those things are so important. So I do commend kindergarten teachers, first graders, first grade teachers. You have to do so much where you are surrounded by kids all day, and you are not interacting at the same level because they're younger. You're literally having to speak to a child so they understand you.
Right.
That's a really interesting perspective. I never thought about that. And you probably yearn for that
human
interaction. Not that they're not humans, but they're little humans.
When you're on the floor playing Barbie Dreamhouse for an hour and a half, kid will remember that forever, and they love it, and it's important. You need to do that. For all the parents that are like, I'm not doing this because I have other things to do. No, that's what you're doing because there's nothing more valuable than that. But then you need a break. You can't do that all day long.
Yes.
So here's one thing for everyone watching, this is really important. If you don't have kids or you're a grandparent, there's always, especially grandparents, what can I do to help? What would be the most helpful thing for the family? It's not books, it's not toys, it's not all these things. Just show up and watch the kids for a couple hours every once in a while.
Preach.
Show up if you're out of town, get on a plane, drive, show up for 3 days, hang out, and let mommy and daddy go away for a little bit, because that is the most cherished time in the world, is adult time away from kids. A couple hours here and there. My wife and I can get a date done with a whole date in an hour and a half.
Meal conversation and a kiss.
Yes, and it will sustain us for a week or two because we had that time to sit around, and then you end up talking about the kids.
Yeah,
but whatever.
And how did you miss that? Maybe
you feel
that's such a great piece of advice, though.
So please show up. Help.
But talk about
a couple hours is like 8
yeah.
hours to the parents. It's a huge game changer.
But you go from a time when, like I'm dating now, you go on marathon dates that are hours long to getting a whole date in an hour and a half.
Right. Because you're not learning about someone.
I can't fathom this.
You're not learning about someone when you're married and have the kids.
You want to know one of our dates recently? This was probably about 6 months ago. We were coming back from somewhere. Kids fell asleep in the back of the car. We pull into the garage. They're both asleep. I'm like, well, we can't leave them in here, but they're both asleep. We were in our garage. Car was off, whatever. And then she said, do you want a glass of wine? And I said, okay, sure. So we turned on the music, and we sat there. We had a glass of wine. We had our date in the car with the kids sleeping in the back.
That's so precious.
Yeah, and it was fun. We were talking about all sorts of things. We're like, this is hilarious. And she's like, this. And then they woke up, and we're just like, cheers. We're
That's
like,
all you need.
We're like, that's all you need.
That's cool. That speaks to a strong relationship in general.
Yeah.
So go you.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it was
really
fun.
awesome. Any more comments coming in?
Yes.
We have
So
a ton.
Kimberly and Jessica, I believe, were having this conversation that you lowballed the number with $1,700 being the price for 2 kids. Kim, was it? Yeah, Kim was quoted $2,200 a month to watch 2 of her kids.
Wow. And you
Dude.
said 17?
Yeah.
What?
No.
I'm
my
wondering
rent payment.
if it changes by region, down in Southern California, because I know people's cost of living, if you're in the Los Angeles area versus Northern California, if it's even more expensive, because I know people make more. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Even say babysitting, right? Like, so my wife and I, sometimes we shoot weddings, right?
Yeah.
She's a photographer, I help out. That's 10 hours. I mean, you can go less than minimum wage. I mean, but you're talking about 2 kids here all day long. You don't. I mean, nothing against 16-year-olds, but that's a long day for them.
Yeah.
So you really need an adult. It can't be less than 15. So you're talking about almost $200 just to go away for the day to have someone watch your kids, and you have to know them and trust them and all of that. So you probably should be a little bit more than that.
Right.
So it just on a day-to-day, it just adds up.
And the margin there isn't very, the job that you need to be doing needs to be making you so much money that it warrants paying that $200.
Yes.
Right, exactly. And some
at the end of
people
the day.
are just more or less, they're compelled. They maybe it would make sense to financially to stay at home, but they don't want to lose their position that they've worked so hard in their career for.
Right.
So then, you feel like if I just need to take 2 years off for these kids, there's the feeling, whether it's warranted or not, that by the time you come back into that
obsolete.
job, that maybe your moment has passed you by. So there's a lot of people, it makes no financial sense to keep going to work and to pay all this money, but they just want to keep going because the pressure to keep going, whether to be creative or have that time or stay in your career and have that for yourself. This whole thing's a whole struggle.
So I was looking at Kimberly Morgan and what she had to say. So basically we know that she has 6 girls, 6 kids. She always talks about this. She goes, I wonder what my, equation would be because she has 6 kids. So it says being a mom, the headline today, being a mom is the equivalent of 2.5 full-time jobs. And they're talking about, okay, that is, I don't know if it's 1 child or they're saying if you have 3 or 4 or 5. So I did the math there. That's 15. So 2.5 times 6, 15. So it'd be 15 full-time jobs. If you counted 2.5 for each kid.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it's a difference between 1 kid when you just had Lakin and then now with Lakin and Mav. I mean, is the load 2 times?
No. It's more, but it's not like it's not like it's not a 1-to-1.
More.
Michelle's going, phew, thank you.
Yeah, you kind of scared me there.
We